If you have two shoes, please sell one and buy a sword. If you have two trousers, please sell one and buy a sword. Because now it is time for revolution. And this revolution is not on streets. This revolution is not in angry faces. This revolution is in the mind. Because if we are not in charge of our mind, then our bodies are the tools that the oppressor will use to oppress us and to oppress our people. That is why Steve Biko said that the most potent weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Freedom and decolonization, peace and power to you all African people. We greet you with our revolutionary greetings by saying that peace and love. My name is King Kabbalah from the African Continental Unity Party. The African Continental Unity Party, or ACUP, is a global emerging Pan-African movement for liberation of Africa. It's actually rapidly transforming itself into political parties around Africa in every African country where it settles itself. So if you want to find more about the ACUP, please check in the description below. The link is there. And if you want to join us, we are open. Kindly join us. Let's work together for the rebuilding of Africa as a global power base. That is the vision that we have. Rebuilding Africa as a global power base. Brothers and sisters, today we want to reflect on a very important topic, actually. As you can see from the title of this presentation, Africans despise hard work and embrace oppression. Maybe this title might be controversial, but let me try to explain to you why or where we come from with this title. And after that, obviously, you will be able to also make your own analysis, your own judgments, and put your comment put your comment below to participate in the conversation. So when we look in the world today, actually, let's begin from the past. We know that the United States of America was built by slave labor. These were African people under oppression that were forced to work. And indeed, they worked and they produced what is to be known today as the United States of America in terms of infrastructure and stuff like that. There were slaves who were utilized to build that country. When they talk about African countries during the period of colonialism, black people were forced during that time of oppression to work, to build the railroads, to build the roads, to build the infrastructures that were needed at that time for the exploiters to take the resources from Africa to overseas. And that's the reason why some of the few infrastructures that were built on the continent were built solely to facilitate the transports or the transportation of the materials, raw materials, mineral resources from Africa to the Western world. And our forefathers were used during that oppressive time to build those things. Now, let's look today in the capitalist society, or in capitalist dominated world, we see that Africans, when they are employed in these capitalist industries, capitalist corporations, they are doing well. We have great doctors, we have engineers, we have scientists, African people who are doing great things while they are working under the oppressive capitalist industries. For example, if you are using Lenovo as a laptop, in case you didn't know, out of 9 certificates that built Lenovo, 6 of them are owned by an African person, Mardin. I think his name, I'm calling his name right. Mardin is by himself the owner of six certificates out of 9 that constitutes or that built or that have built Lenovo as a modern laptop that we have today. So we have great minds. We do great things when we are working in other people institutions, in capitalist institutions, oppressive institutions. We do well. But the question is, why don't we do well on our own as African people? When we are among ourselves, why don't we have the same creative mindset, the same, genius that we are actually exhibiting while we are under oppression or even working under capitalist institutions owned by other people? Because even during slavery, this is very, very astonishing. Even during slavery, we had African people being slaves, but at the same time being inventors of a lot of things that exist in the world today. You talk about electricity, you talk about calculators, you talk about a lot of things that were invented by African people, but being enslaved. So we did well during the oppression. Why can't we do well on our own as African people? So that is where the topic comes from. So it appears that we enjoy working harder under the oppression or under oppressive conditions, but we despise hard work on our own as African people. And this is what it seems to be today, because when you go in most of African countries today, you see that really we control the resources. Let's put it that way. Even though we don't put the price to those resources, but we have access to those resources, and we have the possibility today to do something with them, to showcase our wisdom, our capabilities and stuff like that. But you see that we do not want to focus on developing these resources by ourselves. We quickly run to the IMF, to the World Bank, to other multinational corporations in order to beg for loan and use that loan to buy equipment already built upon our raw materials in Europe to come and enjoy life. You see, that's a problem. Now, this is the major problem that we can say that we have today as African people, that we despise hard work, but we embrace oppression. So with this mentality, we cannot build Africa. There has to be maybe another colonialism so that we can build Africa. But on our own, with this mindset, we won't be able to build Africa, and this must change. For example, or another example, for you to understand better where we're coming from. You see, during colonialism, African people or our forefathers were utilized to work harder, to build the infrastructures, to produce the economy. As you know, our people were used to cultivate the cottons, to cultivate the rubber. For example, in the Congo, you know the story where black people were amputated simply because they couldn't reach the quota that was actually prescribed to them. So people were actually forced to work to produce the economy that sustained the colony, and not just the colony, that also sustained the mother country, which was Belgium in the case of the Congo. So people worked hard to make the colonial economy functioning, and it functioned so well with the labor of black people who were forced to do that, and they did well. Now, when the time of independence came, and this is applicable to almost every African country, it's the same reality that we can observe in every African country. When the so-called independence period came, African people got to be independent, and some of them kicked the oppressors out of the country. They sent them back to Europe where they came from, and people relaxed. People stopped working. People believed that for the mere fact that we are calling ourselves independent, everything will be just fine. We'll have the economy, our lives will flourish, we'll have the food and whatever that we needed. But it doesn't work like that. People forgot that it was the hard work which sustained the economy of colonialism. It was the hard work that produced the food that they were eating during the colonial period. And because people were forced to work under those oppression or oppressive conditions, we began to believe that hard work is a kind of punishment. And that is why after independence, what we saw in Africa was celebration, but not hard work. Was celebration and expectation without hard work. And that's the reason why soon after independence, African countries were sinking into poverty, unemployment, and degradation from all aspects of social life. And what we had to do, we had to go back and call the very same oppressors to come back and rescue us with loans, which has the loan that have obviously sinked Africa in the precarious conditions where we are up until today. We have been unable to repay the loans because the whole system is set up for you not to be able to repay the loan so that your exploitation can continue. And all of this is because we despised hard work, working harder on our own to rebuild ourselves. We just believe that for the moment that we have been declared free and independent, everything will be fine. The economy will put itself in place, jobs will create by themselves, will create themselves, food will produce themselves, stuff like no. They have to be produced by the people. And if we believe in our independence, in our freedom, then we should be the people who have to think and create all these things that we want. But what we have been seeing is that us as African people, we don't want to work harder on our own. We only work harder when our back are against the wall, when we are forced, when we are oppressed, when we don't have option anymore. That is when we begin to work harder. That is when we begin to show our intellectual capacity to build tools, to invent things. But at that moment we are doing that. We are inventing all those things, not for ourselves. We are inventing them for people who are oppressing us, people who are controlling us. Let's even take it back to Haiti. You see, when after Haitian Revolution, the black people burned down the plantations because those plantations were a symbol of oppression. Indeed, they were. Black people were oppressed to work in those plantations and produce the economy that the French people were enjoying, except the black people themselves who built that economy. So now, as part of revolution, they had to burn down those plantations. And after burning down the plantation, after recuperating the situation, after freeing themselves, there had to be a work of reconstruction in order to build the economy of Haiti. And black people didn't want to do that. And they were fighting against Dessalines, because even against Toussaint Louverture, because he had to tell them that you need to go back in the plantation. And black people didn't want to go back in those plantations because they were a symbol of oppression. But they forgot that we need to work harder for ourselves now, because we have been working harder for the oppressors. But now, being free, it is the time to work hard for ourselves to build our own economy. So they began to look at the Dessalines, to look at Toussaint Louverture as the oppressor. They had to look at him in the same way they were not looking at the French oppressors, because they didn't understand that now it is time to work for ourselves. It is the same situation that we see in Africa today. After independence, people relaxed. People didn't want to work harder anymore. People didn't want to give more, even after the independence, for themselves, while they have been giving so much for the oppressors. But they didn't want to give much as they gave to the oppressors for themselves now. So this relaxation, this kind of comfort, this kind of joy and celebration of independence without a substantial work that must be done to rebuild ourselves and to rebuild our economy is what is still keeping Africa in poverty up until now, because we despise somehow hard work. We only find ourselves working harder when we are working under the institutions owned by other people. But on our own, we are too relaxed. We don't want to work harder. We don't want to organize ourselves, and we don't want to think to create what we need. So we are relying on other people to do for us what we are supposed to do for ourselves. And that's the reason why in Africa we love so much election. We love so much what we call democracy, simply because in our mind we believe that the fact that we are going to elect a candidate, our lives will automatically change, because that candidate somehow has got a magic stick by which he can transform our lives. He will create employment. He will create the economy. And if we don't love so much elections, we love so much prayer, because we believe that by the fact that we go and pray, our lives will automatically change. And we don't count on hard work, on thinking, on creating, on imagining, and bringing forth what we have created in our mind and begin to work with our hands to make it a reality of our life. And that's a big problem in Africa today. That's why we are too much into churches to pray for God to do even what we are supposed to do ourselves. Can you imagine if you are a father and you have a child, and you call your child, you tell him, okay, my child, I've bought for you this piece of land, and go there. The house is there. I've bought for you a mansion there. I've built for you a mansion there, rather. And if you go there, you will find everything is there, set up for you. Maize, fish, chicken, everything is there. So you leave the child with all those things. And a day after, the child calls you, say, Father, I'm hungry. Please give me some food. What would you think? You will eventually hate that kind of child, because what you expect from that child is to be able to think for himself, to take whatever that is there, the cooking oil, the fish, and cook the meal for himself and eat, because everything has been put there. And that is the reality of us African people. We have all these things, the manganese, the gold, the platinums, the cobalt, you name them, diamonds, gold. And yet we are still every day in the churches praying for God to bless us. What kind of blessing can God give us except what he has already given us as African people? That's a problem, because simply we despise hard work and we enjoy oppression. So African youth, you who are aspiring to becoming a leader tomorrow, you must understand that leadership is a hard work. It's not a relaxation, because the dominant mindset today is, when I'm elected a leader, I will relax and everyone else will just serve me. I will get everything I need. I'll just go and take the money. That is what is killing Africa. For us to be able to rebuild Africa, as is the vision of the current generation, and it is the vision of the African Continental Unity Party, we must be able to embrace hard working for ourselves. We shouldn't be the people who only work harder when they find themselves without option, when they find themselves against the wall, then they begin to work harder. No, we must embrace hard work on our own to rebuild Africa, because this job of building Africa cannot be done by Europeans, cannot even be done by Chinese or by Russian, as some of us may expect. It is a job that must be done by us African people and for us African people. Do you know how much money, how much energy the oppressor is spending every day to monitor our progress, to keep us being colonized, to keep us in the condition of precarity where we are today? Do you know how much money the oppressors invest in think tanks groups in order to study the means by which they must keep us under their hegemony? A lot of money. So the question is, how much effort, how much resources, how much energy, how much money us as African people we spend to rebuild ourselves. You need to make a comparison, because we are dealing here with a situation of evil against good, as Kwame Nkrumah put it. So for us to change our situation, the goods must prevail over the evil. So it means our effort, our energy, our commitment, our dedication must be stronger than the effort that the oppressor is developing every day to keep us oppressed. So American, through their organizations such as Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, all these things are the tools that America is using, the Western society in general are using to keep Africa under the hegemony. So we cannot free ourselves. We cannot even expect freedom if we don't compete against that, if we don't develop the same mindset, the same commitment, the same energy, proportionate to what is keeping us down in order to elevate ourselves. That is why I'm always saying to African people that it was by force that we were put down. It was by force and brutality that we were put down, that we were colonized, and that we are being neo-colonized today. And it will take the equivalence of the same force that we will elevate ourselves. Let me repeat this again. It was by force that we were put down, and it will take the same force or the equivalence of the force that has put us down to elevate ourselves, not by prayer, not by votes, not by democracy, not by wish, not by hope. Only by the same force that we'll be able to elevate ourselves. And I'm going to leave you with this quote from the provisional president of the United States of Africa, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey. He said that that change has never satisfied the hope of a suffering people. Only hard work can really satisfy their hope. So if today we hope to be free, it is not by change that we will get that freedom. If today we hope to liberate ourselves and to rebuild Africa as a global power base, is not by change that Africa will be rebuilt. It should be by hard work, and that hard work will be done by us as African people. So if you are not working for rebuilding Africa, what are you working for? Are you working to rebuild Europe, which is the oppressor of Africa? I don't know. So if you are willing to participate in this noble cause of rebuilding Africa, we are inviting you to join us in the African Continental Unity Party, or ACUP, so that together we can build or rebuild Africa, or actually lay the foundation over which our children will rebuild Africa as a global power base. And the time is now. It's not tomorrow, because tomorrow we never know what will happen with the current status quo. It's not a job that we must hand over to our children. We must lay the foundation now so that they will know how to build on the foundation that we have already laid down. So please join us. Let's us together work for the rebuilding of Africa as a global power base. If you have 2 shoes, please sell one and buy a sword. If you have 2 trousers, please sell one and buy a sword, because now it is time for revolution. And this revolution is no longer on the streets. This revolution is in the mind. Peace and love, freedom and decolonization. Thank you for sharing the video. Thank you for subscribing to our channel. And thank you for liking and commenting. We see you next time. Peace and power.